Welcome back to day 89 of our chess journey to 1500 ELO on chess.com. I still have a bit of a cold today, so I hope that does not interfere too much. But anyways, we'll just jump on ahead into our game here and try to find an opponent. We get Rakib Hussain from Bangladesh. 1d4. Which move will we see in response here? We get this, the Indian game. Let's go to c4. And we get this variant. I was hoping for d5 here because, as we know at this point, that's a slight inaccuracy for black, because we have analyzed it a few times. Let's come up here. We get the anti-Nimzo Indian. The Nimzo Indian being this bishop coming out here after knight to c3. A transposition to the Queen's Gambit declined. Let's follow the main line, or the traditional variation, which includes this pin here, and typically this and or this. Now e3 is a good move. Preparing to develop our light squared bishop while defending our pawn here. We get b6, which typically seeks to play c5 and or develop the bishop. So well, we could bring our bishop out here. Alternatively, we could bring our knight out to c3. Knight to d2 might be an option as well, or a3, preparing to play b4 rather. I don't quite know what the best move here is. I think all of the moves I mentioned are probably okay. This takes away this move, but I don't consider that to be much of a threat. So instead, maybe developing looks to be okay. If this is played, then what do we intend to do? I don't quite like playing against c5 as white in the Queen's Gambit declined. But surely we should have some way of playing against it here. This. Do we just ignore, or do we take here perhaps? If this is played, I guess we take once more, and our opponent is forced to take our pawn, because the next capture comes with a check. So this, if we take here and our opponent takes like this, we get an imbalance, which I like playing with. And then we have an open C file probably. We can maybe apply further pressure here by coming up here with our queen and targeting this pawn, for example. So let's come out with the knight here. We just transposed into a modern variation, which tells me this was a decent move because it's theory. So I'm expecting this is still in the balance, considering we are still transposing into main and modern lines and traditional lines and whatnot. The bishop comes out here, which is not a move I'm super familiar with, but we'll see what we end up doing here. Bishop to a6. So it seems our opponent here is probably quite booked up. I do not know the best move here. b3 might be a move. However, I was looking at queen to b3 instead, developing our queen while also defending the pawn. This might be a move, defending like this. But we might just get kicked out by a move like this. Now that doesn't work because we would have this response, which looks annoying. So this might actually be a good move here. Hope you don't hear the cars outside too loudly, as they do seem to be somewhat of a nuisance. I think I know the move here. This seems to be okay. And here, is there a move that does not lose the bishop? Because this appears to me to be a fork. This, and this. Maybe our opponent does not know the theory here, because realizing we have this move, I do not see how they prevent the fork. This doesn't work. So let's come up and see how our opponent responds. Or well, okay, funnily enough here, I do have to mention, I did recognize on one occasion there while calculating the bishop is defended, but I forgot. Anyways, I think this is still okay. We have some pressure here. Maybe this move is better now even, as it deals with a lot of the stuff in the position here. I want to calculate this because this is pinned, but I don't see anything concrete here. So instead, let's jump in with our knight. I'm guessing perhaps our opponent's queen might move to defend the pawn, but we'll see what they end up doing. Anyways, I think I like this offensive positioning with the knight. Although we do have to make a mental note, this bishop is now unprotected, entirely unprotected. The bishop comes back, so we get a defensive resource like this. Let's calculate this quickly. Can we take now? Still the pawn is pinned. There's the queen as well, so I guess we don't have enough fuel just yet. So maybe we'll come out with the bishop first. Just want to calculate this quickly. This seems to be okay. Yeah, so let's come out with the bishop. Create some long-term threats against the king, I think. Was considering c5, but then again I did not see anything concrete as a follow-up. Would have liked to take this pawn, but that's not available to us right now, so instead we'll play like this. Or maybe we have something like this, but that's probably still available to us afterwards. Where is it? Let's have a look here. If we take, or if we move the bishop out in the castle, this pawn is no longer pinned, so that it might recapture. So here, if we take, and our opponent takes, with a knight even, is an option. Now this pawn here becomes a liability. b4 maybe, and we can stack the rooks, and this pawn will be a weakness. It can't move up, and it's not defended by any pawns. It's difficult to hold onto it, I think. So here, instead of coming out with the bishop immediately, I'd like to advocate for taking. to create a target for ourselves. Now, of course, we do have to remember the bishop. But the pawn takes. This is still protected, at least for the time being. So which moves do we have available here? I guess just coming out with the bishop looks okay. But then is this playable? No, it's not. It's pinned, of course. So this pawn remains a liability. So let's just come up and develop and then configure our pieces in a way where we can target this pawn. Or just in general get into good positions and maybe force our opponent's pieces to be tied down to the defense of the pawn. We get castles. Now we always have to calculate lines including this, but there is nothing there now. I'm looking at our options here, but I do not see anything concrete. So let's just get castle first and then take it from there. We're pushed back ever so slightly. We'll maintain the pin, I think. Now this becomes somewhat of a hook. This is a move I did not expect. Is it good or is it bad? I think it's honestly quite bad, because now this pawn can never be pushed. It's just standing there being a weakness. I don't expect this to be playable, although it might. No, it's not quite good. Doesn't work. Do we come back here or to b3? I don't quite like c2 here, because I want our rooks to be the ones targeting the pawn here. I don't want our queen to be in front of them, so maybe coming back to b3 might be better, but then we're kind of blunted by the pawns. So I don't quite know here. Going all the way back to d1 might be a move as well, but that's going to take an extra few tempo here or tempi rather, to get our pieces properly configured, which I do not quite like. So coming here, but then now the pawn can push because it's defended. No, it can't, because this, and we win this pawn. So let's come to b3 here and see what our opponent does. Still, we get an opponent here essentially playing blitz with 15 minutes on the clock. So here we have an option. Do we take or do we move back? Honestly, I don't quite know what the best move here is. It's a bit difficult here to evaluate. No, we don't have any tactics like this. Maybe we'll just drop back here. I think I like our knight better than our opponent's knight. because this knight does not have any good mobility, although it might help this pawn push, but then again the b pawn is going to fall if it does. So a6 might be a move here, trying to defend this pawn. We'll see if it's played or not. I think I would have played a6 here, but there are probably a few options. So we'll see which one our opponent goes for. The knight might move, intending to trade off this, which is probably okay as well. A5 might be a move, although it might not be the best move. I don't think this works. Simply because, as I mentioned, this pawn hangs. So here I guess we might even play this, but now the knight comes to b6. So we don't have a lot of action here yet. We'll see about changing that eventually perhaps. Now I think I'd like to bring the queen back to c2, which is not a move I would have liked to play. But I'd like to get the pawn here or here to get the knight out, kick it back. Let's just calculate what happens here first. Is this annoying? I mean, it's a bit annoying. So maybe coming back first. But honestly, this doesn't threaten a whole lot, so instead I'm inclined towards playing here and getting our rooks into the game first. This is a bit surprising, but we can't quite target this pawn. I'd like to come back with the queen here to allow rook to c2 without closing our queen out. I don't see any sack here, doesn't seem to work, at least not from my, well, still quite shallow calculations, but considering our time situation, I don't want to calculate too deeply here. Still, this pawn should be our primary target, I think, although it could currently be pushed at the expense of this pawn though, so a6 would prevent that idea. And then I don't quite know what our best idea is. Maybe just trading off the rooks on the a file. Let's have a look here. This does not hit anything, although it's just annoyingly positioned. This doesn't work. This works though. But we might just come up with the rook first here, as the knight is not threatening anything just yet. Although this pawn can be pushed now, as I mentioned, and this is blocked by the knight. So it seems here our opponent is maneuvering the position quite well. So we might have to speed up so as not to lose the game here on time. a5 is not a move I expected. Do we have a4 here? what happens here. We might have this backwards move. Or maybe this first. No, but then I think this first. And if this is played, I guess we move the knight and play for b3 perhaps. Kicking the knight out, I wanted to play a4 first here, so the knight can't land on a3 without us having the option here of hitting it. Well, the bishop is still here, but that's now. I don't quite know what it's going to look like in a little while though. Now is this a move? Takes, and takes seems okay. And then the pawns are doubled and isolated. Takes. Maybe we just jump back and target the pawns here. We don't have a lot of time here, so I'll just take first here and play on intuition on this move. It seems okay. I'm hoping it's not bad at least. Now the pawns are doubled. We do have to move the knight though. This hits this pawn. And we remaneuver and reposition our knight, I think. How will our opponent defend this pawn? Maybe like this. And then we might have this move. At least that's what I'm seeing. This hits both of the pawns and threatens this fork here, importantly. If this is there, this move, but then we might just pile on pressure onto this pawn, and I think we might win it. So let's come up. What does our opponent do here? They're down to 12 minutes now. Finally starting to think here. We, however, are at 1.5 minutes. So we're gonna have to play quite quickly from this point on. Making a mental note here, be careful positioning the queen on d2, as it might allow for some attacks and discoveries like this. The rook defense, but now I think this pawn just looks free. And I like free pawns. I definitely like free pawns. I don't mind taking this quickly. So as not to spend too much time here at least. We have some pressure here, however it's currently defended. But if the knight moves and we get this, well, then this might fall eventually. I want to calculate stuff like this and see if we ever have any options of jumping into some position here, but I don't quite see it now, although that might change quickly. I think coming back here might be a good move, hitting the pawn. Opening up this attack. What do we play if the pawn is pushed immediately? This seems to be the best move to me. Maybe we still come here. Or do we have this? No, I don't quite see anything here. We have to remember this pin as well, so we don't easily want to trade queens here, making this skewer more annoying, or pin rather. So if the pawn is pushed, do we just come up here, and if it's taken, the knight comes up, I guess? This is a move I did not expect. Is it a threat though? It's not. At least not as far as I'm aware. This, there is this, but then we take and we still have the fork. I don't see how this is ever bad. So we're down to 1 minute now. The clock is starting to tick. But hopefully here we will be up 3 points of material, after which it might be a bit easier to play quick and accurate moves. Especially if we do get the queens off the board. That might make our conversion a whole lot easier. I think if this is played, we still take the queen. Because if this is played, this comes with a check and is another fork. So we get this move, which is a resource I did not quite see. But I think here we take the rook. If our bishop is taken, we have this, which comes with a check, so this has to be dealt with now. Let's just get some stuff off the board. We are pressured down here, so I'd like to deal with that immediately. I'd like to come up here, maybe look for a queen trade. And then maybe double here and target the c-pawn. If this, I think we're in a great spot. Our knight here is getting active. And we have ideal positions for the rooks. This bishop is kind of closed out because of our pawn chain. Okay, we get this. And then I think we'll come up here and just double rooks. I don't see a threat. Bishop to d3 and we take the pawn on c6. Or well, never mind, we take like this or this. Forgot the queen was covering d3 as well. So now this has to be defended, most likely. We could see something like this as well afterwards if it's defended, just piling on the pressure. I don't hope my coughs are too loud, guys. I'm somewhat sorry here, or quite sorry rather. I do not intend to be loud, it's just my cold here being ever so slightly annoying. b3 might be a move at some point, although currently I don't think it's a good move, because it might just expose our pawn here to this bishop, or eventually the queen perhaps. So what could our opponent play? This just loses the pawn. So the king moves. Free real estate, why not? Just making sure I'm not missing anything here. But this seems to be okay. If takes, and we have some great pressure. Maybe we can look to pick up the pawns here. I'd like to team up with our queen as well and just grab the c file in its entirety. So we're up 4 points of material. This might be a move at some point, grabbing the a pawn while hitting the queen. And then b3 maybe, and we might have a decent position here. Yeah, this is what I'm liking. Here, our opponent might want to come here and threaten a checkmate, which should be easily blocked, I think. And then we grab the a pawn. This knight is actually defending this g-square, so it's not a threat all that soon. And our queen is preventing any infiltration by our opponent's queen. So if we get this pawn, I'm more inclined towards playing a b3 to have a protected passed pawn, or potentially just coming behind here and threatening to push it. Okay. We get this, which, well, it's a desperation move, but I don't blame our opponent. I think we can take if bishop threatens our knight. Maybe here we don't have a lot of time. Let's take. The bishop is going to come here most likely. No, the pawn does. Oh, that's a miss by me. That's quite bad. We're going to miss or lose this pawn rather. That's quite bad. Oh, it's an immediate checkmate. Oh no. Oh, that's horrible. No, no, no. Lost in time trouble. Did not quite have enough time here to find the best response. Although we should have been decisively winning, as I guess the graph will show us. It does. Wow. We had a great game until, well, we didn't. So we did make a blunder here at the end. Let's have a look at the moves. We played with 84 and so did our opponent. This was all good. All good moves. Queenside castle was apparently best, although I don't quite like queenside castling here. Should have taken, but the difference is not that big. But why was this good? Because of this. Let's have a look. I should have went back to d1. I mentioned the move, but I was not quite happy with it. This was all good. This was bad. Our best move here was... Okay, if I was to play this again, what would I have played? Surely this is not best, right? Also, how do we defend this? Okay, we take the knight apparently. I did not intend for the arrow to show up, but it did. Instead, we went here. Jumped in, got the pawn. Once again, this was good. Now we took, jumped in, and honestly here, there should be no way to lose. I didn't see this. Why was this so good? we just play with this, I guess. But honestly here, instead of taking the pawn, the best move was this immediately. If I'd seen this, I would have played it. It would have forced the bishop and the queen here to no longer coordinate, rather. And let's say the queen comes back. No, it can't. Oh wow, that just makes the move much better. It forces the queens off because the queen is pinned to the king, so it can't move at all. Well, that's unfortunate. If we won here today, I think we might have hit 1450, although we're still not far off. We got checkmated here in quite a horrible fashion. Buckled under time pressure today. Anyways, thanks a lot for the game, Rakib Hussain from Bangladesh. Thanks for watching to the end of the video, guys. This has been our game for today, and I hope to see you all tomorrow. Bye bye.